Das war jetzt also nicht mal unbedingt die Schuld des Spiels, sondern meine, weil ich einfach so dumm war, aufzupassen. Man muss echt immer alles lesen, ey. You know what? I have a problem with a particular property of the poison used.
Oh, Prosecutor Gavin was quite clear about the poison. A lethal dosage of 0.002 milligram paralyzes the central nervous system. If you drank that, even you, Mr. Justice, would be reduced to a quivering pile.
Why are you using me as an example? Unfortunately, we weren't told everything. There was a vital omission in Prosecutor Gavin's information.
An omission?
Atroquinine is as virulent as he says, but death doesn't come upon ingestion, not immediately. That's because atroquinine is slow-acting.
Slow-acting? What?
According to one forensic scientist. It's one of the most virulent poisons, but is absorbed into the body astonishingly slowly. It takes at least 15 minutes from the time of ingestion for adverse effects to show. Mindestens 15 Minuten. Dann müsste der das ja schon vorher irgendwie. Oh, mein Handy. Ist fast alle. Egal, das hält ohne raus. Müsste das ja schon vor dem Besuch vielleicht genommen haben. Ich meine, wenn er das sofort, der hat es getrunken und ist dann direkt umgefallen angeblich. Aber wenn das an die 15 Minuten braucht, Ich habe übrigens gerade mal nachgeguckt, wie das im Japanischen hieß, das Gift. Da heißt es Atorokinine. Atorokinine. Okay. Weil ich immer hin und her überlegt habe, ob ich jetzt Atroquinine oder Atroquinine sage. Aber okay, wenn es im Japanischen Atorokinine ist, dann sage ich weiterhin Atroquinine. If we suppose that the moment Mr. Misham sipped the coffee was when he sealed his fate, then he would still have had time left to enjoy his last cup of joe. Und wie dünn ist der Typ denn?
Order! What is the meaning of this? If what the defense says is correct, why that contradicts the entire testimony we've just heard.
Ja, können wir den Typen jetzt bitte rausschmeißen? Well, Mr. Burchell, anything to say? On the record.
Slow acting.
S-L-O-W-A-C-T. It was virulent, all right. Even then, it had already begun digging his claws into the journalist. He's working on his scoop.
Objection!
It's Brushel, yeah? Herr Brushel, let's take a trip back down memory lane. Huh? Did the victim really die the instant he took a sip? Think it over. This is vital. You know what I think? I think that was a not so subtle suggestion. End quote. I admit it does cause a problem if he died when you say he died. I would be forced to say auf Wiedersehen to my simple case, and you would be forced to say farewell to your article. Come again? You can't write a story based on conjecture, can you? And as the case drags on, other reporters will pick up the scent, and you will be forced to kiss your exclusive scoop goodbye. Scoop! Scoop! What the fuck is he doing? Er leckt die Zahnbürste und putzt sich damit die Brille. Können wir den bitte in die Klapse stecken? Look, wait, just wait a second, just 1 second.
Oh, we're waiting. Out with it.
I think I just recalled a so-called important detail. A revival of recollection, end quote. The story's survival, end quote. Attorney utterly confused, end quote. Die wollen ihn auch nicht haben. Das glaube ich sofort. Actually, I did notice something when I visited the studio. I'd heard of poison that takes its sweet time, see? But not what I've been saying for the last few minutes, apparently.
Mr. Russell, are you saying you noticed something that explains what happened?
You bet I am. the antidote for a poisonous contradiction, end quote, you might say. Or, I still have no idea what you're talking about, end quote, I might say. I figured it out, but only after an in-depth interview. See, thanks to my journalism skill, I know who poisoned that coffee. Okay, dann lass mal hören.
Order, order, order.
As far as I can tell, the witness is standing by his testimony that Mr. Misham died the instant after he drank. Of course I'm standing by my testimony, and my dream of exclusive rights to this story. I suppose it was too much to hope for. What was? Of course he wouldn't choose a simple case, not him.
Him?
Phoenix Wright, who else? Achtung, Herr Brushel, report for us if you would. What is it that you noticed?
This court is a critical trial of the jurist system. I'm afraid no room for doubt is permissible. You will testify to the court about what you noticed.
When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk. He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. I thought nothing of it at the time, of course. Now that I think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note?
A suicide note?
Yes, he had this look on his face. A man's face inscrutable as a quadratic equation, end quote. Suicide? Poor Mr. Misham. But that means Vera's innocent. Would someone commit suicide in the middle of an interview? Oh.
Very well, you may begin your cross-examination.
When I arrived at the studio, Mr. at his desk. Was there anyone at the studio other than Mr. Misham? Well, his daughter Vera, of course. Was anyone besides Mr. Misham and Vera present? Not a single one. Not a cat, not a rat, not even a mouse. The only person who didn't belong to that studio there was you, wasn't it, Mr. Brushel? I know what you're doing. I know your game. Attorney uses classic Ramsden phenomenon ploy, end quote. If you intend to suggest that this reporter is a suspect, I'm sure you also intend to present evidence supporting that assertion, correct? In the meantime, let's move along, shall we? He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. Vielleicht hat ja nur das Ding aufgemacht, das wir gefunden haben. So he put the letter away when he saw you. Early reporter gets warm, end quote. That's my secret. I'm not sure I follow. It's the night of the interview. I arrive 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The handle turns, the door opens, and I barge in. Are you sure that's okay to do? I mean, isn't it unlawful entry, really? Mr. Misham sure seemed to think so. You should have seen him. He crammed his letter into the yellow envelope as fast as he could. I know a secret runner spot one, and that was one.
It does seem significant. Well, Mr. Justice.
I wonder. It doesn't have a ring of something important. Okay, add it to testimony. The defense finds the testimony vital.
Very well, please add it to the testimony then.
Hey, why not? My account comes free of charge. It was a yellow...
Objection!
As it just so happens, there was a single letter in a desk drawer at the scene, in a red envelope. Prosecutor Gavin. Yes. Was a yellow envelope found at the scene of the crime? Unfortunately, no, but her forehead. It's easy to mistake the color of an envelope. I guess, but not this envelope. You see, it was postmarked already 7 years ago.
Well, Mr. Brushel.
I can explain that. You're right. He wanted to get that letter in an envelope. Pronto. Get it out of sight of my beady eyes, right? So he grabbed the nearest envelope and crammed away. And what about the whole red and yellow envelope contradiction, chump?
Well, Mr. Justice, have you anything to say to the witness's claim?
That night, the victim put a letter he had been writing in a red envelope. Sieht man bei Verkehrsampeln, ne? It's possible. Man könnte it's possible sagen, weil der Brief ja Spuren davon hatte, dass er schon mal aufgemacht wurde. Andererseits könnte man it's impossible sagen, weil was sich in dem Brief befand, nicht klang, als wäre es etwas, was er geschrieben hat. Deswegen bin ich jetzt ein bisschen unsure what to choose. Probiere ich mal beides aus. It's entirely possible. But Apollo, we checked the contents of that envelope yesterday, didn't we? Oh, you're right. Okay, also war es so gemeint. Es hätte ja trotzdem sein können, dass er das geschrieben hat, aus irgendeinem Grund. Auch wenn es keinen Sinn ergibt. That's impossible. Oh, I like your expression. So full of confidence. It's simple, really. Yeah, all the confidence I didn't actually have just now. As it just so happens, the defense team investigated the contents of this envelope with the assistance of a forensic scientist. What? Note that this letter is addressed to Drew Misham. Oh. Why would he address a letter to himself? Let alone send a suicide note to himself.
I've been scooped. Order, order, order. Mr. Brushel, can you explain this to the court?
Oh, my. How could I have forgotten? I suppose this happens to the best of us. Reporter gets old, forgets lots, end quote.
I'm still waiting for an explanation, Mr. Brushel.
Well, that's the thing, see? After he put this letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. His desk drawer? Yes, a stamp. A so-called postage stamp. Uh-oh. Lass mich raten, da war eine Briefmarke drin. Die war vergiftet. Und er hat da dran geleckt, um die da drauf zu kleben. Aber warum würde man eine vergiftete Briefmarke in einem kleinen... Und wusste er nicht, dass sie vergiftet war? Seltsam. Yes, a stamp, a so-called postage stamp, end quote.
A stamp? Whatever for?
Well, to mail his letter, what else? And then, why yes, I think I saw him put it in his letterbox. Yes, it was a yellow envelope. And he put it in that box.
Well, apparently this yellow letter has nothing to do with this case.
Oh, how I wish it did. Just think if that were a suicide note, what a story. Star writes suicide note in front of reporter, false, end quote.
As I was saying, it has nothing to do with this case. That's it.
Yes, Your Honor.
It makes me wonder about the contents of the red envelope. $100,000 is quite a good deal of money.
So this was from 7 years ago, yeah?
So, am I finished here? Am I finished here? I was thinking of, going home to start writing.
I hate to state what should be pretty obvious to anyone, but when you catch the scent of a story, you make that, rather unique face.
Come on. Attorney has active imagination, little else. End quote. Even I noticed something and my eyes aren't what they used to be. I'm starting to understand what all this perceiving stuff is about.
Judge has active imagination, end quote.
Please continue with your testimony. Tell us about the scent of a story.
Hey, I'm the one asking the questions here, usually. Actually, it took a bit of work to get his thumbs up on the interview. Reporter leverages his story, gets his interview, end quote. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. That red envelope probably had something to do with it. Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare.
So you threatened to go to press with this story. That's how you got your interview.
Was that all?
Blackmail?
Well, yes.
I mean, no. it wasn't exactly black. I mean, I'm not... something wrong, Mr. Brushel.
Look, this is my story, my tidbit, journalist's info is livelihood, end quote.
I see.
Why do you have me chatting away in here? What's going on out there? What if some Wally Wadsworth or Sally Scooper gets wind of my story? They could be going to press while I'm going to waste.
The court feels your pain, Mr. Brushel. Mr. Justice, let's pick up the pace.
A certain case 7 years ago. Wait, 7 years ago? Oh nein, Perceive ist wieder da.
Hold it!
The victim, Drew Misham, had an aversion to reporters? Boy, I guess not even my considerable chums did much for him. Considerable? Was bitter. Until I finally got my thumbs up, that is. Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit for us. Born lover, sorry gets this interview.
Hold it!
Exactly what sort of story was this? Oh, a little one, like I said. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing in between, end quote. I might have suggested I had a lead on this particular story, but I didn't threaten or cajole or nothing, honest. So suggestion was enough to get an interview? Mr. Mission must have really wanted to keep it under wraps. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. So
Hold it!
a certain case 7 years ago. Tell us what case. Let me say one thing, Mr. Attorney, and you can quote me on this. I can't talk about that case. Why not? It's about journalistic pride and staunchness and credibility and connections. Journalist reveals sources only over his dead body, end quote. So what will it be? Going to strangle me? Dead men don't tell tales, Mr. Attorney. He sounds pretty determined not to talk. Our chances of breaking his will aren't looking good. That red envelope has something to do with it. On the one hand, we have your story, and on the other, this letter. What makes you think the two are related? I was just saying it's possible. I called it reported intuition, end quote. Hey, I say a lot of things. You going to pick all of them apart? Be my guest. All of them, no. Just the incredibly suspicious ones.
I see. Anything else to add about Mr. Misham?
Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare. Just how amazing was Mr. Misham's talent? Huh? Ooh-wee, boy. I mean, hey, he's a star, man, a star. The florist brushes like a great undulating river across the canvas. Artist paints light up studio like sun, end quote. This guy is full of wacky gestures, but that one just now was wackier than usual. He looks kinda nervous to me, Apollo. Definitely. I'm sensing something different than before here. Maybe it's time to bring out you know what. The testimony left a bad taste in my mouth. It's time to bring out another beer. The testimony left a bad taste in my mouth. It all makes sense. Nothing jumps out as ridiculous. I wonder what the story he's talking about is. It must have been good to get an interview with a famous recluse like that. Something powerful enough to drag Drew Misham out of hiding. Sorry. Maybe it had something to do with Mr. Misham's art. And I müssen wir wieder Perceive machen. Oh Gott, ich will den nicht aus der Nähe angucken. Das ist ja furchtbar. Golden. weiß ja gar nicht, wonach ich jetzt hier suchen soll. Das sieht halt aus wie immer, ne? Nur mich sau bescheuert. Vielleicht irgendwas mit seiner Hand? Wann sieht man die hier? Okay, die Hand ist es nicht. Ich sehe halt auch einfach nichts, ne? Ja, das hatte ich ja am Anfang mal gesagt, dass die mich irgendwann ein bisschen genervt hat. Wie Simon schon mal meinte, die Idee ist eigentlich ganz cool, aber die Umsetzung ist eher nervig. Immerhin kann ich euch beruhigen, die haben sie danach nie wieder eingebaut. Hatte ich hier noch geguckt? Ich glaube, das hatte ich vorhin übersprungen. Muss ja irgendwas hier sein. Weil Justice meint, es hätte irgendwas mit seiner Kunst zu tun. Nur hier sehe ich auch nichts. Er sagt ja sogar noch, that one just now was wackier than usual. I'm sensing something different than before here. Und das hat er jetzt nicht am Schluss der ganzen Aussage gesagt, sondern das hat er gesagt, wenn ich Hold It bei der letzten Aussage mache. Spricht das nicht dafür, dass bei der letzten Aussage irgendwas sein muss? Na, wenn ich jetzt beende, dann kommt nur dieses Gespräch von wegen left a bad taste in my mouth. Das Apollo sagt, er soll sein Bracelet auspacken, kommt nur, wenn ich Hold It wähle bei der letzten Aussage. Das spricht für mich ja eigentlich dafür, dass das ein kleiner Hinweis ist, dass man hier nach was suchen soll. Nur, ich sehe nichts. Mir wird dann auch einfallen, dass vielleicht irgendwie der Füller hinter seinem Ohr mal zuckt oder sowas. Aber das ist ja auch nichts. Den könnt ihr vielleicht noch mal in der anderen Aussage angucken.
Hold it!
Tja. Ich mache sowas ja ungern, aber ich gucke das jetzt wieder nach. Ich habe keine Ahnung. Das ist schon das zweite Mal, dass ich in dem Teil was nachgucken muss, aber ich will jetzt auch nicht hier eine Stunde sitzen und dem seine scheiß Fresse angucken. Statement 5. Ich gucke mal nur, welches Statement das ist, dann haben wir wenigstens noch ein bisschen zum Rausfinden. 1, 2, 3. Das ist ja das, wo ich schon geguckt habe. Oh Mann, da hätte ich ja nie hingeguckt. Da. Er kriegt bei der einen Aussage einen leichten Schweißfleck unter den Achseln. Also sind die... Also ich denke, ich kann mir so gut vorstellen, dass ich das damals auch nachgeguckt habe, weil ich glaube, da hätte ich jetzt noch eine Stunde hier gesessen.
Gotcha!
Sweat much, Mr. Brushel? Yeah, well, a man can't help his glance, you know. It's more than that. When Mr. Misham's talent was mentioned. Ich habe ja sogar gedacht, es geht bestimmt um das Talent. Wahrscheinlich hat er ihn in Wahrheit wegen seiner Forgeries interviewt, nicht wegen seiner Kunstwerke. Das habe ich jetzt sogar schon gedacht. Deswegen wollte ich auch die ganze Zeit gucken, ob da bei Mr. Misham's Talent irgendwas passiert. Und habe genau bei Mr. Misham's Talent gerade immer Sachen gesucht, aber ich wäre nie auf die Idee gekommen, unter seinem blöden linken Arm zu gucken. Das heißt, ich hatte sogar schon richtig geraten, wo ich gucken soll und es trotzdem nicht gefunden. It's more than that. When Mr. Misham's talent was mentioned, you suddenly began to sweat buckets. You're hiding something about his talent. Well, that's ridiculous. Evidence time. Let's show where Mr. Misham's true talent lay. It just so happens I have evidence showing the talent mentioned in that letter. Wo steht denn das? Ich meine, wir wissen das, aber welche? Ja, wahrscheinlich das Bild, wo er drüber malte. I can't help but wonder what the court is supposed to conclude from this evidence. Other than that, you've made a horrible mistake. Dann vielleicht das gestohlene Bild. Ich hätte jetzt als eigentlich fair gefunden, dass hier beide funktionieren. Einspruch. Hallo. Wer ist denn jetzt nochmal Grim Shepherd? Twitch sagt mir nicht, dass du das erste Mal da bist. Sonst würde hier jetzt stehen First Time Chatter, aber ich kann mir nie Namen merken von Leuten. Ah, ein wilder Chris. Oh, wie mache ich denn jetzt hier wieder? Oh Gott. Ich habe auf deinen Namen geklickt und es zeigt mir... Ah, da kann ich das wieder zumachen. Ja, die gute alte Pokémon-Gruppe vor 10.000 Jahren. This painting was found in Mr. Misham's studio. Was hat dich denn jetzt ausgerechnet jetzt wieder hierhin verschlagen? Ich meine, finde ich cool, aber wie kommt es, dass es ausgerechnet jetzt dich in diesen Chat brachte? There are two problems with this painting. The first is it wasn't painted by Mr. Misham. The second is that there was another painting in the studio. Ab in den Zeugenstand, genau. Das habe ich online gesehen, da wollte ich mal reinwinken. Ja, cool. Finde ich cool. Ich habe sogar neulich noch irgendwann daran gedacht, wie du irgendwann mal vorbeigeschaut hast und mich gefragt, ob das jemals nochmal passiert. Ist ja witzig, dass ich das dachte und tada, da bist du. Vielleicht sind meine Gedanken irgendwie da zu dir hingeflogen und haben dich dazu animiert, das nochmal zu machen. The second painting is that there was another painting in the studio which looked exactly like this one, except it was only half done. Then we have a letter discussing a payment of $100,000, which suggests a certain business operation, the business of making forgeries. So kann er gerne bleiben und dann schmeißen wir ihn so von LKW. That is all, Your Honor. Everyone, can we keep this private? Please? This is my story, my scoop.
Forgery, that's a serious crime.
Drew Misham is known as an artist these days, but there were rumors he dabbled in another kind of art until a few years back.
Another art meaning forgery?
Drew Misham was talented at making precise, detailed fakes. A fact that certain criminal elements were quick to discover. Criminal Elements. Ich denke, das rechtfertigt die Todesstrafe für Brushel. Genau. Hat zwar nichts gemacht, aber weg damit. Weg mit ihm. What you can't seriously be talking about. Exactly. I'm talking about forging evidence. Das war tatsächlich das, was ich vorhin im Studio dachte, wo ich meinte, oh, mir fällt gerade was ein, aber das sage ich lieber jetzt noch nicht. Ich habe mich nämlich gefragt, ob der vielleicht als Forger gearbeitet hat und Evidence geforged hat, weil es darum ja schon mal ganz am Anfang des Spiels ging. The rumor started circulating 7 years ago.
7 years ago? So are we going to understand that this letter, this payment of $100,000 was for?
Exactly. Forged evidence, Ned's tiny profit, end quote.
Order, order, order! Why, it's like our victim was living a double life.
This is my chance. So the victim had ties to the criminal world, right? He could have had plenty of enemies we know nothing about.
Objection!
This is my first time hearing of this criminal world. We certainly found no criminal connections when we conducted our investigation.
Objection!
But how do you explain all this money? You have to admit there's a possibility of some illegal activity here.
Objection!
But there is no proof tying this letter to our case. Our case was and remained simple from the beginning. Only the defendant could have poisoned that mug that night. And you, of course.
The only thing I poison is my pen when I'm writing reviews. Mr. Brushel, your testimony to this point has been quite unreliable and annoying. It doesn't speak well of your reporting acumen.
What are you talking about? My journalism is rock solid. Journalism so solid you could stand an elephant on it. End quote.
In any case, let's hear a summarized recap of your testimony. If we can assert the situation that studio from the recap, the trial is over.
Wird Victim, als würde er seinen eigenen Scheiß nicht glauben. Paulo, what is he talking about? The cross-examination showed Mr. Brushel didn't have reason or means to poison him. As long as there are no other suspects, then the killer had to be Vera. That's what. Ich wette, meine Briefmarkentheorie ist richtig. This next testimony is our last chance.
Mr. Brushel, your testimony, please.
Aber wie beweisen wir das? Wie kommen wir überhaupt da drauf? Wie lenken wir das Gespräch jetzt dahin? Frage ich mich. The only other person in the studio was that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She admitted as much herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Da habe ich ja direkt Objection, weil er hat doch selber gesagt, er hätte den gelben Brief da reingesteckt. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter. A nice testimony, clear, succinct, and without room for doubt. Oh, shucks. You really think so?
I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well, Mr. Justice. You may begin your final cross-examination.
Right. I still have one trump card left to play, and that is saving it again. Welche trump card überhaupt? And I won't let this trial end until I use it. Ich weiß gar nicht, welche Trump-Karte er jetzt meint. Ich hätte einfach bei dem Nothing Left the Room objected. Coffee to not himself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. Nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Kann ich hier jetzt das präsentieren? Haha. Endlich wusste ich mal wieder sofort was. This is the only link between that studio and the outside world.
A letterbox?
What did Mr. Brushel just tell us? When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter.
Yeah, I said that. And yeah, it was true.
Furthermore, you went on to tell us that he put the letter in a yellow envelope and put it in the letterbox.
Oh.
But that very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night, the yellow envelope disappeared. Ah yes, intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Of course, this changes nothing. Huh?
Here's a point, Mr. Justice. What we're trying to figure out here is how the poison got into Mr. Misham. Is it really important that this envelope the witness says he saw disappear?
Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave the studio that night. That seems very important to me.
Very well, then the witness will add this to his testimony. You got it.
I still think this fails to change anything her forehead. I wouldn't be so sure. A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for.
Hold it!
Nothing could be more serious than an envelope disappearing from that studio, and you were hiding that fact from us.
Yes, well, actually,
I don't argue the possibility that a letter disappeared from that studio, but her forehead, isn't there a much more serious question before us? Right, how Mr. Misham was poisoned, I know, but Mr. Brushel's testimony has changed, which means the facts of the case have too. And what he's told us means something entirely different now. I'm starting to think. Let's keep thinking, Apollo. Kann ich das jetzt präsentieren?
Objection!
Wohl nicht. Okay, war wohl noch zu weit gedacht.
Hold it!
Ja, das wollte ich nicht nochmal drücken, sorry. Ich hätte jetzt gedacht, dass... das...
Hold it!
Nein, ich will eh drücken, Mann. Ich hätte jetzt gedacht, dass da irgendwas präsentiert werden muss, weil das ist eine neue Aussage, die hinzugefügt wurde. Aber vielleicht muss ich doch erstmal noch alles andere pressen. Aber ich wüsste jetzt gar nicht, was ich da präsentieren soll. Only other person in the studio that I was really fan. But that doesn't prove Vera poisoned it.
Objection!
How many times have we heard that on her forehead? The poison reached its victim via that coffee mug. And from where did that coffee come, huh? Nee, das ist nur an der... Das ist andersrum. Das Gift ist in der Tasse gelandet, weil er schon an den Lippen hatte. Not to beat a dead horse again and again, but perhaps you could fill us in. I'm on it. You need a horse beat? I'm your man. E. It was Vera who poured the coffee.
Hold it!
Ich meine, Beat kann ja auch was anderes heißen. Und Brushel, also, likes to beat horses. And you witnessed her pouring the coffee? Of course I didn't witness it when she came in with that tray. The coffee was already poured and is steaming. Let us not forget the defendant has admitted to pouring the coffee herself. I heard her statement. I poured, I served, and I killed. What? That last part was just a little joke. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere with this coffee mug. I need to find another weak spot in this case.
Hold it!
You're sure about that? Well, to be really, really precise, I was busy gobbling mint candies the whole time. One of those candies might have been poisoned.
Objection!
Yet, at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room, and no mint residue was found. It was a long shot anyway. Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this. You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than coffee?
Well, Mr. Justice, you have some proof.
The possibility is there, I can feel it, just maybe not prove it, not yet. And possibility isn't going to cut it, not now. Mr. Misham ingested that poison via a route other than that coffee. Proof is possible. Equals nothing. Uh-oh. You do understand what we need, yeah? Proof, Herr Forehead, not possibilities. Of course. And Prosecutor Gavin, I hope you understand. I'm ready to give you that proof. What did you say? I have proof of the disappearing envelope. I saw him writing a letter, I did.
Which was picked up by the mailman, I assume.
Of course, which means that envelope had a stamp on it. Oh, ich glaube, jetzt kommen wir dahin.
A stamp. Ah,